PCO Limited is a telecom operator laying of cables across the world. Is required to enable the entity to run its business. Cable also laid under the sea and contract is also entered into for the same. By virtue of the laws of countries through the cable passes, the entities are required to restore the seabed at the end of the contract period. Discuss the nature of obligation to use your limit as incurred. So, as per the Ind As 37 state, the provision of all recognized under an entity has a present obligation as a result of the past event, legal and constructive obligation. It is probable that outflow of resources embodying economic benefit will be required to settle the obligation. Money should be spent to settle this obligation. A reliable, reasonable estimate can be made of the amount of obligation. So, to spend how much reliable resources to be spent on this obligation, you need to compute it. If the conditions are not, no provision shall be made. Two conditions met. When the action is done, out of that, one obligation is occurred. For completing that obligation, we some outflow of resources is required. Not only that, that how much resource is going to be required to complete that is also to be understood. Further, this regards past 17 state that a past event that leads to a present obligation is called an obligation event. For the event to be an obligation event, it is necessary that the entity has no realistic alternative to settle the obligation to created by the event. This is the case only. Where the settlement of the obligation can be enforceable by law. In the case of construction obligation, where the event, which may be action of the entity, creates a valid exception of other parties, that the entity will be discharged the obligation. Applying to the above guidelines of given scenario, the provision should be recognized as soon as the obligation event takes place because the entity has a legal obligation to restore the seabed. And provision of such recognition criteria stated in para 14 reproduced for the above met. However, the amount of provision would depend on the event of obligation arising from the obligation event. In the instance case, the obligation event is the laying of cable under the sea. To the extent of the cable have been laid down under the sea, the legal obligation has arisen, and to extend the provision of restoration of the seabed should be recognized. So you should recognize the thing. What is the obligation? How much resources to be flown, and to be estimate how much to be done. Probably it will be flown. Outflow of resources will be there. No, that there will be resources outflows there. But that not only that, how much resource will be estimatedly outflown should also be considered.